we begin the show the best way with breaking news out of Minnesota. Adam Schefter, what is going on with the Vikings?
Molly, the Minnesota Vikings have made a quarterback decision that surprised nobody. Before they even played a preseason game, they have named Kyler Murray as their new starting quarterback. And essentially, this was something the Vikings said they wanted to see all summer, a competition. It didn't go on very long. It went a couple of weeks before Kevin O'Connell, the Vikings head coach, informed his team today that he had made the decision to go with Kyler Murray moving forward. Now, the Vikings can plan accordingly. There are obviously huge ramifications, and we go back to the offseason. Kyler Murray handpicked the Minnesota Vikings because he believed he could and would win the starting job. The Vikings were drawn to him for his ability. Now they'll get a chance to see his ability. Now that they've awarded him the starting job, Kyler Murray is now the man in Minnesota.
Good stuff, Adam. Vikings head coach Kevin O'Connell addressed the media today with more on his plans for Kyler as the Vikings' new starting QB. Here's what he had to say.
There's moments in time where there's comfort from Kyler in the scheme. He had some really high completion days where he was able to show some really good understanding of just putting the ball in play, playing with great timing, rhythm. As you continue to look at the body of work through those 10 days, what jumped out is what could be.
You heard KOC. There is comfort in Kyler. So now it's Kyler Murray's team. Molly McGrath here with Field Yates, Adam Schefter, and Mina Kimes. Mina, is this the right move for the Vikings?
I believe so. Let's start with why Adam, I think, correctly said this isn't particularly surprising. Last year, JJ McCarthy was statistically a bottom 3 quarterback in the league. And with Kyler, all you have to do is go back to 2024 when he was 10th in QBR, 7th in success rate. If you can even come close to that, you don't even have to be that good. I do think this lifts the floor of this Vikings offense. Whether or not the ceiling is lifted and puts them in contention comes down to a lot of things. Obviously, improved performance from Murray, health are paramount, but I would also argue the marriage between the quarterback and the play caller is what determines how far they'll go. There's been a lot of chatter about Kyler and his fit or lack thereof in Kevin O'Connell's under-centric offense, attacking the middle of the field. Kyler has done those things in the past, go to that 2024 season, but I'd also like to see some evolution from O'Connell to match the quarterback skill set. One of the things they did that intrigued me in Minnesota was bringing Frank Smith from Miami to help implement some of that run game, which is much more about being in the gun or the pistol. Now you throw in a quarterback who is a dual threat, and I think that has potential to buoy the run game as well as the pass game catches up. So I'm optimistic. I think, a lot remains to be seen in terms of the ceiling, but overall the decision makes a ton of sense.
I mean, I've shared that optimism you just expressed since basically Kyler Murray got onto the Vikings' radar. I think independent of who the quarterback was going to be for Minnesota this season, when it became clear the team was going to shop for a new, or at least a competition at quarterback, I think many of us, at least I felt this way, that Minnesota is as about of a good of a spot as a quarterback could land for these reasons. Kevin O'Connell, with perhaps the exception of JJ McCarthy, has made a lot out of whatever quarterback he has been working with since becoming the Vikings head coach. Kirk Cousins played very effective football. We saw Nick Mullins and Jaron Hall even have moments of effectiveness, albeit during down seasons. But we saw Kevin O'Connell prove himself as a talent maximizer at QB. And then, of course, Sam Darnold parlayed his success in Minnesota into a big deal in Seattle and is now a Super Bowl champion. I also think that it's a good spot for Kyler Murray because he'd kind of fallen off the, I'm not going to say elite quarterback radar, but at least above average starting quarterback radar. He had kind of seen his career reach rock bottom. And for him, while he has known a certain way of playing, when you reach the juncture that I think he reached in his playing career, sometimes you need to find someone who can help get you back to where you want to be. And I think Kyler Murray is as invested in the ways in which Kevin O'Connell wants to make him the quarterback that he has been in the past as Kevin O'Connell is as invested in Kyler Murray. So, Shefty, not surprised that this is how it ended up in Minnesota, and I do have some optimism this 9-8 team from last year can compete for the playoffs.
And Field, it does create a very interesting, intriguing situation for each quarterback because when Kyler Murray went there, he had the tag inserted in his contract that said he could not be tagged. There was a clause there put in there. So if he has a great year and wants to test free agency, then he would be allowed to leave. But of course, if he has a great year, you would think he'd want to stay, because the Vikings right now have been playing catch up after losing both Daniel Jones and Sam Darnold, who they had in Minnesota. Both quarterbacks went on to shine elsewhere, and the Vikings now are trying to come up with another veteran plug-and-play option. As for JJ McCarthy, he's played 10 games in his career, essentially, in the NFL. He's 23 years old, and you have to wonder if he's going to be the next quarterback, a la Baker Mayfield, a la Sam Darnold, a la Daniel Jones, that needs a change of scenery before he is allowed to thrive in the NFL level. He's so young and still has so much NFL future, and obviously, when the Vikings are going to Kyler Murray this early, it seems like it was almost predetermined, predestined to go that way, because they're betting on Kyler Murray's upside. But JJ McCarthy also has upside. He's just not going to get the chance to show it early on here in Minnesota, and that will lead to questions about his future in Minnesota and how much longer he will be there.
Yeah, Adam, to your point, JJ McCarthy is still so young, and he's a fierce competitor, so hopefully this just brings out the best in him. But we bring in now Chase Daniel, who is joining us after having some audio issues. Chase, welcome to the show. I want to know your thoughts on Kyler Murray as the Vikings starting quarterback.
I love it. Look, I don't think it's surprising whatsoever that he was named the starter, and I honestly think he gives Minnesota the best chance to win immediately. I was listening to Field and Mina and Adam all on my phone while we were having these audio issues, and I couldn't agree more with all of their points. Look, he's going to be playing under center probably more in his career than he ever has at Arizona. And I think that's a good thing with this timing offense with KOC, who's a McVay and Shanahan disciple. I do think they can get back to what they were doing with Kirk Cousins from a few years ago. And I think he just brings an aspect of, hey, he's been there, he's done it. Kyler's played like a top 5 quarterback for stretches in this league for a lot of times. Look, the inconsistency is there, but this is not surprising whatsoever. I mean, when he signed for the minimum deal in Minnesota, and Arizona's still paying their his salary, to me, it makes a lot of sense. I do think he gives them the best chance to win right away.
It'll be so interesting to see if Kyler Murray has a career resurgence under KOC. He's definitely set up for success there in Minnesota. And it is that time in preseason camp, guys. Starting quarterbacks are named, and players finally get to hit someone other than their teammates. Joint practices kicking off today, and we start with the Rams hosting the Cowboys ahead of their respective preseason openers this Saturday. And the big surprise today was Myles Garrett not participating in practice. Here's Coach Sean McVay on his Stars status.
He's still got a little swelling in that knee, but he said, I'm feeling about 85%. I don't know what 100% is going to look like, but it must be pretty good if that's 85%. So we just erred on the side of caution. You know, we're getting to learn him. He's so tough. He wanted to be able to be out there, but listening to Reggie and just kind of erring on the side of caution, when he's been out there, he has certainly made his impact felt. But we want to make sure that when he returns to play, he's able to return to full performance and feel like himself. There's nothing to be concerned about. It was just us kind of erring on the side of caution. There wasn't any setbacks, anything like that. So this is kind of the same thing. We're just making sure as we kind of get to know him and what's the best way to ultimately get him ready to be able to peak when we start in Australia is kind of what the end goal in mind is.
So Sean McVay kind of minimizing this situation, but that's big news. Lindsey Theory at the joint practices today between the Cowboys and Rams. Lindsey, what can you add on the Myles Garrett situation?
Molly, out here, a little bit of audio issue right now, but out here at Rams practice, I can tell you, Sean McVay talking about not being concerned. This is historically the route that the Rams have taken with any of their star players who's kind of going through any sort of issue. Myles Garrett now has been in training camp with the Rams for about 2.5 weeks. He's missed about 4 practices that have been open to reporters. That's about half of their workouts. But Sean McVay saying there that this really is erring on the side of caution. Of course, they would have liked to have seen him out at joint practices. Dak Prescott, on the other hand, he was asked if he was bummed that Myles Garrett was not available to go today. He shook his head. He goes, I definitely heard him out there. Dak Prescott, though, reiterating that because they were not going against this elite pass rusher, they did take out some of the protections that they had planned on working through today. So that did alter some of their plan as they went against the Rams. Dak Prescott assessing today's workout, saying it was good, not great. They did not quite get off to the start that they wanted to. And then And Molly, one more update. Sean McVay actually revealing to reporters that Puka Nacua was not able to finish today's workout, that he left early from the practice. Let me just set the scene for you out here. Obviously, 2 practice fields, 2 sets of offenses, 2 sets of defense. There is a lot of action going on. Nobody really seemed to see anything go on with Puka Nacua. I even asked Matthew Stafford if he saw what happened with Nacua. He told me I did not. Really, I don't know what the issue was, but nobody came up to me in a panic, really intimating that Matthew Stafford's not too concerned about whatever ailment happened with Puka Nacua, and Sean McVay telling us immediately after practice that he did not have an update.
Wow, huge news out of Rams camp. No player has averaged more receiving yards per game than Puka Nacua since he was drafted in 2023. So, Adam, what can you add on both of these injuries for the Rams?
Well, you heard Sean McVay say they're not concerned about Myles Garrett. It's just injury management there and being smart and cautious with him. The curious one right now would be Puka Nacua because he did leave the field. Sean McVay was silent about what the injury was, did not comment, and there's been no word from anybody else since that has happened. So, again, nobody knows exactly what that is. Sometimes it means nothing at all. Sometimes it means it's a little something. There has been no update on Puka that we can say to you exactly what the injury is and how long he could miss, if there's any time at all to be missed.
Well, Adam, we know that you're going to be on top of that. That would be huge news if Puka Nacua is somewhat injured. And Chase, looking at this Rams offense, what are your concerns for how they'll able to duplicate kind of what they did last season?
Look, everyone's talking about the new look defense. Myles Garrett, is Aaron Donald working out? When's he coming back? Is he coming back? How long until he gets back? And rightfully so. I think the defense is going to be really good, Molly. But on offensive side of football, you have the reigning MVP. You have a guy in Davante Adams who led the NFL in touchdown catches. How will they evolve as an offense? That's what I'm going to be looking at. Look, their identity last year was, hey, let's get in 13 personnel, start about week 5 or 6 against Baltimore, and let's spread these teams out, really make it look like a 2x2 or a 3x1 formation and get these teams in base defense. Well, guess what? There's a year of tape on this Rams offense. I don't think, maybe so, but I don't think Matthew Stafford's going to throw for 46 touchdowns again. So it's just finding that identity on offense. Who is going to be the guy that steps up? Like Davante Adams, 17 touchdown catches last year. That's wild. And I think what in the Sean McVay offense can they add that stays on the forefront of cutting edge? Because that's what they've done every single year. I don't know if it's more, hey, let's get back into 11 personnel formations and get down to like a 3 tight end look like they did a couple years ago. Mina, it's just they go back and forth so much. So I'm really looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, it's a great point. McVay has evolved that offense so much, even just over the last few years. You talked about the personnel groupings. The run game has evolved, going from being a zone run game to more of a duo run game. And I think McVay has shown such an ability to bend that offense or grow it with the different personnel he has. Look, when I look at this depth chart, if you were to tell me that the depth chart on paper is the same one we will see for the majority of the season, frankly, I have zero concerns about this offense. However, I do worry about injuries. And I know people are listening to that and they're saying, well, yeah, that's true of every team. Sure. But I would argue it is more true of this team, particularly with the offensive line. McVay's been very good at evolving the offense. The 13 personnel switch up came in response to wide receiver injuries. I trust him completely in that regard. But that offensive line is not particularly deep, especially at the tackle position. And Matthew Stafford, as amazing as he was last year, first in yards per play kept clean, drops to 25th under pressure. So if you were to take out one of those offensive linemen, that would be the only thing that concerns me about this Rams offense. But, we're talking about depth, right? Not actually the players on the field, because the players in the field are amazing.
Yeah, it's really hard to find dramatic issues with this Rams roster. I would argue on both sides of the ball. As far as the scheme stuff that Chase was discussing, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that the Rams are usually the team that's starting a trend as opposed to following or chasing a trend. They'll have some wrinkles this year that we haven't previously seen. The age and the injuries are kind of a factor, though, Mina. Injuries, as you mentioned, they can hit anybody, but the Rams are an older team, right? This is a team who has one of the oldest players, not just quarterbacks in the NFL, and Matthew Stafford and Davante Adams, who defied time last year. The fact that these guys led the NFL in passing touchdowns and receiving touchdowns, just ridiculous at the combined age of 70 years old last year. And I do believe this Rams team, we're going to figure out very early on in the season whether this is the Avengers and the team that is setting the pace for the rest of the league and 31 others are chasing them, or if this is a team that's very good, but in a tier with a handful of other teams as Super Bowl contenders. Their first 5 games, no joke, including that opener against the Niners in Australia.
Yeah, to your point, Field, having a tough schedule not going to help the Rams. They have the second hardest schedule this season, including the hardest after their Week 11 bye. But they're still the favorites for the Super Bowl, so we'll see what happens. All right, we're just getting started here on NFL Live. Let's keep the camp pass rolling, shall we? Joint practice is underway. The Cowboys locked down one of their best defensive stars. Hear why one of us thinks Dallas is building the best D-line in football. Plus, we head to the Patriots-Colts joint practice where A.J. Brown and Sauce Gardner bring in the heat, and let's just say the back and forth didn't end on the field. That's next.